just really trying to feed my tiny baby real food and better food. And so that was a big journey for me because I we had been kind of like a hamburger helper, bagged salad, bottle dressing kind of family or, couple up until that point. And so I was learning so much. I was making all the mistakes. I was spending a lot of time at the cutting board and standing in the kitchen, just like figuring things out. Again, literally making all the mistakes. And I thought, maybe I could help other moms like do this easier. Like what if they could learn from my mistakes and get to the answer a little bit faster?
Hi there, Soulful Mama. Welcome to the Soul Care Mom podcast. I'm Katherine Wild of soulcaremom.com. I'm a mom of 3 amazing kids, a soul care mom coach, and a yoga and meditation teacher. I've helped hundreds of women, and I'm here to help you feel calm and find your unshakable confidence as a mom. If you're ready to stop living in survival mode and you're ready to drop the mom guilt and overwhelm, this podcast is for you. Think of this as a lunch date with a girlfriend. Grab a cup of tea and get cozy. It's time to get honest and vulnerable and shift the traditional mindset around motherhood. Be sure to subscribe to be the first to know when new episodes are released. Get ready to grow and feel empowered as a mom. I'm here for you, Mama. Let's get started. Hi, Katie. Thank you so much for joining me today. I absolutely adore your work and the way that you empower parents and children in the kitchen. It has been such a gift to my family, and so I'm so glad that you're here.
Well, you've already made my week, Catherine. I'm just hoping I can bring some value to your audience now.
Oh, I know you will. I know this conversation is going to serve so many. And I'd love to just, for those who don't know you, to share a little bit of your journey and maybe, what was that moment, the messy or magical or both, when you realized like teaching life skills and real food was more than just a thing you do, but this beautiful legacy that you're building?
Yeah, I started my parenting life. I'm a teacher by trade, but I knew I couldn't teach and mom well at the same time because I'm a perfectionist. So you can't perfection 2 things at once. So I was blessed to be able to be mostly a stay-at-home mom, and I started just really trying to feed my tiny baby real food and better food. And so that was a big journey for me because I we had been kind of like a hamburger helper, bagged salad, bottle dressing kind of family or, couple up until that point. And so I was learning so much. I was making all the mistakes. I was spending a lot of time at the cutting board and standing in the kitchen, just like figuring things out. Again, literally making all the mistakes. And I thought, my teacher brain is constantly going, I'm like, maybe I could help other moms like do this easier. Like what if they could learn from my mistakes and get to the answer a little bit faster? So that's when I started writing online at Kitchen Stewardship. And so I was trying to help moms stay healthy without going crazy. You manage like their budget and their time and their family's nutrition, which are really sometimes competing demands, I felt. And through that process, I kept hearing the same story from a lot of women in my audience. And it was, Katie, I really do want to be healthy, but it's so hard because I was never even taught to cook. So it was like a double mountain to climb in some ways. And as my own family got bigger, so I have 4 kids, and I was really good, like, not to pat myself in the back, but with the first one, like with one kid, I was really good at involving him in everything. And then as soon as I had to split my attention just 2 ways, forget 4 ways. I was sort of falling apart as far as like actually teaching them to cook and teaching them life skills and stuff. And so there was this moment when my oldest was in 4th grade and he had to do this demonstration speech for his class. So I'm like, well, maybe you can do food, So he's showing his class how to make homemade guacamole. I got to come in because you can't put a chef's knife in a 4th grader's backpack. Like it's just a thing, right? So it was cool. I actually got to be there to watch it. And he's like thwacks the pit out of the avocado. And I'm like, man, like this kid's hot stuff. I'm feeling like an amazing parent. And then it hit me. This is the only recipe he knows. Maybe I'm not such an amazing parent. Like he's a one-hit wonder. And he's 10. So he's like just over the halfway point that I thought of parenting, halfway to 18. I'm like, oh my goodness, I have got to make some changes. So I really intentionally taught my kids to cook that summer. And that became our Kids Cook Real Food e-course because I'm like, all these other moms weren't taught to cook as kids, were not comfortable in the kitchen. certainly we're not passing on the skills we don't have ourselves. And so then that kind of tumbled into more life skills because I just really saw a need. Like so many parents think, like I wish I knew where to start in passing on life skills to my kids, but I'm like barely adulting, myself. And so it's just we need a village. And so it's really fun for me now to pull together every summer. I pull together all these experts and create this life skills now summer camp. So now we're in like budgeting and gardening and entrepreneurship and all this stuff that maybe I don't know, like maybe you don't know, but these 70 experts, they know. So it's like we can have them into our home virtually and really give our kids a great experience. So that was a very long explanation, but I'm like easily bored. So I just tumble from one thing to the next, apparently.
I love that. Thank you for sharing so authentically like your journey because I think there's so many of us that can relate to like, oh wow, I'm a parent now what, right? Like,
Right? Yes.
yeah, I feel like I'm barely adulting and now I have to help this human like, grow into this independent, resilient adult. And I
Yeah.
love that you said, he was 10 and to think about like that's halfway-ish. I know we were talking about it doesn't end at 18, right? The
Right.
parenting, but to think like, wow, like that really is like halfway. It seems so young, and yet they're so far along on that part of their journey. So I love that you start so early in the kitchen and that you empower kids to be independent. As my kids get older, it's so amazing. Like they are excited to help in the kitchen, and it takes things off of my plate. Like my kids make breakfast and they help with lunch and they like to prep dinner and they like to bake. And so, yeah, it's been a journey to get there, but it's so beautiful to go on that journey. And I love that you help parents with that.
That is so good to hear that they're really involved. And like asterisk, results may vary. Like not all kids remain motivated, but the earlier you start, the higher the chances that they'll like sort of keep that intrinsic motivation of the toddler preschool years of that, like, oh, mama, can I help? Like, daddy, I want to be next to you. And if we build those skills then, instead of saying, no, like you can go play, like mommy's got this in the kitchen, if we teach them that the kitchen and real skills are the place for them, you do research back to have a higher chance that they're motivated. So I love that it's worked for you. Sometimes my
Yeah.
kids like to cook. Sometimes they're like, oh, this is such a chore. But they have the skills, which is important.
Right, but they're getting the skills and they can use them when they need them, right? Like I
Yes.
think yeah, that's really amazing. Okay, so maybe there's a mom listening right now and she's like, okay, that sounds great, but can't even get my kid to eat, right? And you say something really intriguing, and you say picky eating isn't about the food. So tell us more about that. What does that mean?
I hope that concept is really curiosity inducing, like mind opening for parents, because we tend to look at our kids struggling at the table. They don't want to eat the food, and we're like, "Oh, where's like the perfect recipe? What can I feed this child that will pass their lips?" But for most kids, picky eating is more in their body. It's more of a physiological thing. So we see a lot of kids who are highly sensitive, and that could be any sense. It could be not just like oral taste and smell, but it also could be hearing or touch or visually overstimulated. And if you're overstimulated or your senses are just like out of balance, it's really hard to engage with food because food requires all our senses at once. So that's a big one. I mean, you see a lot online about like sensory stimulation and overstimulation, stuff like that. So we know it's a big deal for a lot of kids. We've got a lot of kids who struggle actually with chewing and swallowing. And that is something parents do not think about. But check this out. What are some picky eating foods? Okay, mac and cheese, chicken nuggets, mashed potatoes, french fries, a lot of hot dogs, sausages, like especially when it comes to meats, a lot of our sort of picky eater friendly foods are very easy to chew. And sometimes that can actually be a sign that your kid simply has weak tongue and jaw muscles, and so, like, if they're presented with a grilled chicken breast or a steak, like, that's just really hard for them. I don't like doing things that are hard for me. You don't like
Mhm.
doing things that are hard for you. So, what do kids do when it's hard? They like wave the white flag. They're like, oh, I don't want to eat this. Is that crazy? Does that make sense? So, like,
Oh,
that's one of
yes.
these cues. If you're like, oh my gosh, I just realized, kind of observe like what your kid enjoys. If it's stuff that's easy to chew, they might just need a couple sessions of like oral feeding therapy to strengthen those muscles. This, by the way, can be a result of our baby food pouches, which
Mm.
is they're like so rampant and like no judgment. I use the pouches too. They just weren't as rampant when my kids were little because mine are 10 to 20 at this point. But those pouches create an unnatural sucking motion instead of chewing. They also cause the kids not to be able to see or smell their food before it goes into their mouths, and that can actually increase picky eating because it's really important. Like if you picture the fun photos of toddlers in their high chairs, they're covered in food, right? Spaghetti on their head, like yogurt on their elbow. I remember my oldest used to take his yogurt and rub it up and down his arms like he was putting on sunscreen. He was
How's
actually
that
like
felt
play
good?
acting.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was play acting sunscreen. And that's actually really important to learning to eat and to engaging with food. So when it's coming out of this pouch, they're missing super important interactions. Same thing happens with like super clean moms. Again, no judgment, but there are some moms who are like wiping immediately, right? Like the washcloth is like whew, going across the face. It's going like, don't make a mess, child. They have to make a mess. So some kids get stuck at like a certain stage of learning to eat, no fault of the parent. It's just we're trying our best, right? But if they don't go through all the steps of the process, like putting food on their head, they can present like picky eaters, but it's really they just have never quite learned to eat well. So those are literally like just a handful of wild physiological reasons that kids might present as picky eaters, but they really have something intrinsic, internal to their bodies going on. And it's not about the right food, it's about either figuring out that root cause or creating a space where they can have a better relationship with food, where they can engage with that food with all their senses. They can engage with that food without pressure. Because even saying something like, eat 3 bites of your broccoli and you can have dessert, like that feels positive, but it's still pressure. We're still like pushing the kids to eat, and all of those things can create stress at the table. Stress raises adrenaline, adrenaline decreases appetite, and you're exacerbating the problem that you're trying to solve. So, when parents can really create a better environment at the table and lots of opportunities for exposure to foods, which means don't feed them the things only that they like, right? We have to keep feeding them like a wide variety of food and getting them in the kitchen so that they have exposure points with all their senses with no pressure to eat because they're not even at the table, right? There's not even any perception of pressure. All there, and so that's again just little bits of how I help parents of picky eaters, but that's so important. Like put on the detective hat, think what might be going on here, and then how can I reduce the pressure, create a really positive environment for eating, and create lots and lots of exposure, whether that's at the grocery store, the farmer's market, in the kitchen, at the table with many different options. Not again, not like go crazy and be exhausted because you feel you have to put 20 foods out, but don't just do the mac and cheese and chicken nuggets every night. Like the kids have to see and smell and touch and be encouraged to put at least a bite on their plate for that exposure. And changing the environment can really change the situation.
Okay, so many light bulbs are going off as you were speaking. That was so helpful, and it made me think of my youngest. She's 7 now, so she's this isn't as much of an issue anymore, but I used to notice, like, if the food was complicated, then she would just say, "I'm not hungry." And
Mm.
I was like, "Well, you didn't. I mean, you haven't eaten since breakfast, so I'm pretty sure you're hungry, you know?" And so then I would help her. I was like, "Do you want some help with that?" And so I would help, like, or cut up her food or whatever it was that was overwhelming her, and that helped, and then she would eat her lunch, you know? But that's just so interesting that there's so many things going on that we're not, because it is so easy to just look at the food. So thank you for sharing all that.
Yeah, and you were a super smart mom to realize that it was the complexity maybe of the food, and if you could just like get that snowball rolling and
Right.
make it a little easier, all of a sudden, like when she said, "I'm not hungry," it wasn't true. It was
Right.
just her escape hatch.
Do you feel overwhelmed and anxious? Do you wish you could stop losing your temper with your kids and just have more fun as a mom? Do you crave finding more time to do the things you love without feeling guilty? I get it, Mama. I've been there. That's why I created Vibrant Mom Life. Imagine what life would look like if you could finally get out of survival mode, consistently find time for yourself, and be the calm, present mom you've always wanted to be. This membership will help you step out of anxiety and overwhelm and help you find time for yourself without the guilt. Inside Vibrant Mom Life, you'll find monthly themes that will help you shift your mindset, get out of survival mode, and find time for the things you love, all while being the mom you want to be. Plus, you'll find guided meditations and yoga practices that will help you effortlessly infuse your days with self care. And I know that some days are harder than others, so you'll even find a library of short and sweet guided affirmations so you can simply press play and reconnect with your inner calm in just minutes. Join Vibrant Mom Life today by going to soulcaremom.com/membership so you can stop running on empty and truly enjoy mom life. I can't wait to welcome you inside, Mama.
So we've talked about the picky eating and some things. So we've been traveling recently, and we went to Europe, and I noticed that there wasn't like they didn't hand out kids menus when you walked into the restaurant. Like that wasn't a thing anywhere that we went. And so let's talk about that. Like let's talk about like the kids meals. Like there's that's a big thing here. And how does that contribute to picky eating, or what are your thoughts on that?
I'm just tickled to hear that about your European experience. I think we Americans could take a page from some of the ways that Europeans look at food and kids in particular. Um, this is the thing, our culture is making it really easy for us to fall into the trap of serving our picky eaters easier food. It really, with between kids menus at restaurants and kid foods at the grocery store that are super easy to make, like you would not believe, Catherine, the number of parents who come to me for help with picky eating and they're making 2 or 3 meals a day because they're catering to every need, and it's not like they're just shifting the meal. They're literally making different meals. Like that's exhausting. They're completely exhausted, which is why they need help. But I think the culture is exacerbating that. Kids menus were actually created by restaurants who wanted to get more families, into their door, and so that's why ultimately, like in the 50s, I think they started making kids meals really inexpensive so that they could get the parents in and get more customers. But when they were first created, kids' menus were actually nutritionally balanced. They were generally smaller portions of the adult food or more bland, like really like boring, I guess, portions.
That's
But
spicier. Yeah.
yeah, but they were not anything like what we see today. That happened sort of when like TV dinners and convenience food became more a thing after the two world wars. And so there's really been a shift in our culture from seeing children as, smaller humans who have nutritional needs to these like totally different beings. What like what is that? And so I always see like we need to start the way we want to continue. And so if we teach our kids by what we feed them, by our example, not our words, if we teach our kids that they should eat different food than adults, it's actually can be really difficult then to shift their palate. And we're seeing it. We've got a decent chunk of 20 somethings who are still eating the chicken nugget diet. Super concerning. Um, so start the way you want them to continue. Look at, kid meals as smaller portions, right? Maybe simpler food, allowing kids to deconstruct so that their food doesn't have to touch. That's awesome. Like that's not short order cooking. That's just allowing kids to have some preferences and to not be visually overstimulated. But when we're making completely separate meals, not only is it exhausting for the parents, but it does not serve the child because it's allowing them to continue along the path that we don't actually want them to go. So why are we doing it? And this is interesting, Catherine. It actually creates anxiety for the kid because it's our job as parents to care for them, right? And kids will never say this like, "Mom and Dad, I think you should give me some boundaries. I need to have rules." Like they don't say it. But any child whose parents aren't giving them boundaries and aren't stopping some behaviors, they keep pushing those boundaries to see where's mom and dad going to stop me. And if they realize, again, subconsciously perhaps, that no one's going to stop them from doing something dangerous, that is a massive anxiety inducing problem. And it's the same with food. If the child is kind of in charge of what they eat, and that might not mean like, "Mom and Dad, I need you to feed me mac and cheese." But if the parent is making the decision on what to feed the child based on what the child will or won't eat, basically they're putting the choice in the child's hands. And ultimately it can create a lot of anxiety for the child. Like, oh my gosh, is there no one who's going to be the adult and tell me what to do. Weird, right? But
Mm.
it's kind of the way it plays out psychologically for the kids.
Oh, that's fascinating. I've never looked at it that way. Um, Yeah, I mean, there's so many parts of parenting where it does help. Like they love, I notice my kids and I love to like know like, okay, what's happening tomorrow? Like, what does our day look like? And there's those boundaries around what we're doing and like how the flow is going to be. And to think about that with food as well, like to create some, yeah, that's beautiful. I that's
And we
something
want to give our kids choices, right? So
right.
you might lay out three different fruits or three different vegetables and say, here you can have some choices on what's on the table, but the choices shouldn't go all the way to the pantry,
Mm,
all the way to the fridge because now they have all the choice and no boundaries, and that's where the anxiety starts. So we want some choice within the boundaries where we're ultimately deciding what is served for each meal.
right. Yeah, I love that. Okay, so many amazing things there around picky eating. Let's talk about life skills. So in theory, this sounds great, and you've shared some of your journey with this with your kids, but sometimes it can feel really impossible and chaotic. And what would you say to the mom who's like, I just don't have time for this right now?
Oh, there's many. I
Yeah.
mean, you're definitely not alone if you're feeling that way. But I think what we were just talking about with the anxiety
Mm,
plays in perfectly right here. We know that our kids and teens, but our teens especially, the rates of diagnosed anxiety are skyrocketing. They're higher than they've ever been. And you've probably seen out there on social media, oh, it's screens, it's the smartphones. For sure that's playing a role. But we also know that like when do we feel anxious? We feel anxious when we don't have control over our situation. And so for kids, anxiety is going to go up when the parent or the adult is doing everything for them. Because what does that feel like? Oh, like if a problem happens, gosh, I hope my parents are around, right? If your kid gets out into the world as an 18 or 19 or 20-year-old and there's green stuff growing in the toilet, or they're like, gosh, I'm hungry. I wonder how to grocery shop. I don't know how to cook for myself. Like these things are actually creating a lot of anxiety because kids and teens aren't able to solve their own problems because we're doing everything for them for these well-intentioned reasons. I mean, the parents aren't like, I don't love my kids. I'm going to try to raise them wrong. No, we're like, I deeply love my children. I want to make their childhoods easier than ours. I want them to have lots of playtime, right? I want them to excel in school. So we're trying to like move these hard things like household chores out of their way. Um, and be well-intentioned, like I can do this faster. I will just take care of it. The problem is that when the kids don't have any skills, they also don't have anything to truly build self-confidence. And the best antidote to anxiety is to have a deep sense of self-esteem and self-worth. So we've got to give them something to do. We got to give them skills so that they can serve their world. A 5-year-old who makes breakfast for his or her family immediately has that amazing gratifying feeling of like, I have kept someone else alive. Like I'm 5 and I have nourished my family. It's amazing to feel that. It is so much deeper of a feeling of confidence, even than what we see in the sports world, which is great and wonderful too. Like, I'm 5 years old, I helped win the game with that score. That's great too. Or I'm 5 and I did this artwork really well. But man, oh, mister, when you can do like real authentic skills that you see adults doing, there's just something special about that. So that's the motivation for the parents who are like, girl, I do not have time for this. The other thing is it's like investing your money. You might think, oh, I don't have enough money to invest. And the financial gurus would say just $5 a week. Like you can figure out, scrape together $5 a week. And so that's what I say. Like if you can invest 5 minutes, 10 minutes into training a child to clean the toilet, sweep the floor, put their own sheets on their bed. Gosh, I hate that chore. I don't know about you. I hate putting sheets on the
yeah.
bed.
Yeah.
You get that time back pretty quickly. You do not have to wait until they're 18 and like the Roth IRA of chores has matured. Like you get help pretty quickly. And yes, they're very slow at first, and they don't do a very good job at first. But what I like to do actually is work with my kids. So cleaning the bathroom, right? There's lots of different pieces, mirrors, counters, floors, toilet. I'll give the kid one of those pieces and we'll do it together once. And that's where the biggest investment of time is, but it's still like 5 minutes. You know what I mean? Like 7 minutes. It's not much. And then the next time they can do that while I'm like speed cleaning the whole rest of the room. It's quality bonding time. So they're not as obstinate. They're not as like anti-chores because they're with you. And then you can be like, have half an eye on them and be like, oh, remember to do this, or you did a really good job here, but I still see some messy spots over here or whatever. I don't know if that's coming across really well, but it's a great way to be efficient with your time where you're like still moving along. I say the same thing for kitchen chores is like set up the kids at the table after, so you got to teach them a chore away from the dinner hour. Do never teach something new. Like I said, chore. Never teach a new kitchen skill at the dinner hour because you're stressed and you're rushed. Like you have a deadline, you know? But if you can find some moment, like a Saturday morning or after a school snack or whatever, teach them one little skill. Measure a teaspoon of salt, right? Cut a cucumber. Like just think of tiny little pieces in the kitchen. Then they can do that skill at the table. While you're still rushing around in the kitchen, keeping that half an eye on them, and helping them move along if they get stuck, it's like beautiful because it doesn't actually slow you down, but for the very initial teaching point.
I love that. Yes. I love the analogy with investment too, right? That's just it it feels like a lot, but really it's worth it in the end. The rewards are like there's so many levels to them. So um that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And even, yeah, like teaching your kids how to cut up a cucumber. I like when we took your course years ago, that made me a little nervous. But I love the way that you approach it and this way of being with your kids and watching and like guiding them. And it is this bonding experience because you're right. It's hard to separate ourselves, right? When our kids are with us, like they crave that attention and that connection. And this is a way to do both. And it does get easier.
It does. And can I talk about the cutting cucumbers thing real
Please,
quick?
yes.
Because I love that you brought that up. Because first we got to talk about beneficial risk. Lenore Skenazy is the author of Free Range Kids. She co-founded an organization with Jonathan Haidt, the author of The Anxious Generation, which is like getting all the buzz the last year, right? And so she's all about like, we've got to let our kids do things because similarly, they're going to be anxious if they don't know how to take appropriate risks. It's actually really scary if you've never practiced taking a risk, right? And so using a knife is a very beneficial risk. Like kids are not losing limbs. They're not, even if they do cut themselves, the risk is very small. And they very quickly learn how to be safe the next time if it happened. Like it's super, super rare because when you treat that knife with the respect it deserves, almost all children will then treat that knife with the respect it deserves. And they feel this sense of, maturity and independence and trust. If you're giving a 5, 6, or 7-year-old even a small, sharp paring knife, and the cucumber is the perfect, I think, vegetable for learning to use a knife because it's long. So the left hand or the off hand can stay, hey, hey, out of the way, we call it. And then the knife is pretty far from the hand. And it's like this medium density where if you're just learning to cut, you can handle whatever size knife is appropriate for the child's hand and experience. And then like cucumbers and zucchini, they're just my favorite. Um, and so it's super smart to get knives in the hands of your kids as young as possible because it teaches them that beneficial risk and you see your ROI really quickly, right? So I've got 4 kids. And so when I'm rushing, I can be like, you take the cucumber, cut it over there. You take the carrot, cut it over there. And we can like move that dinner process along. Or they can take over now, they can take over a whole meal. So I've got 3 kids who are old enough to make dinner every week. You want to talk ROI? I only make 4 meals a week. That's amazing.
And like the picture that you're painting, it's creating a team, right? You're creating
Mhm.
this beautiful team within your family. What a beautiful vision to move towards. Okay, so cutting the cucumber, what other life kitchen skills what would you recommend starting with aside from that one? Is there anything else? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love knife skills. If you feel your child's too young for a sharp knife, just use a butter knife, right? Butter
Mm.
knife and banana or cooked potatoes. I think measuring is really important. So we want to make sure kids know how to measure a flat teaspoon or tablespoon in a flat cup. And that's again something that the littlest of little kids can do. And it's my favorite to see a 3 or 4-year-old. Maybe they've measured the salt or the oregano and they can bring it to you in a little spill bowl. Like they're not measuring it right into the pot. So you can correct any errors. You can double check it if you need to. Then at dinner, you get to say, oh, Christian, who made this meal taste so delicious? It's just seasoned perfectly. And like, oh, the confidence that grows in the kids is amazing. And so I just see each recipe or each dish that you're making as a combination of little skills. So egg cracking is another really good one that kids are super proud of. I remember my daughter at age 4 could crack a dozen eggs, no shells. She's still better, honestly, getting no shells in the eggs than I am. And she's 16 now. And there's just so much pride in things like that. And then also getting them comfortable with the stove as early as possible. And that's, you have to have a comfort level too, but I would say somewhere between 4 and 7. We want to start introducing that because we don't want them to be afraid of the stove. And once you're comfortable at the stove with just simple tasks like flipping pancakes or maybe stirring some sauteed vegetables, like they don't have to make the whole thing. They can just do their one little skill. And that is the beautiful thing. Like it totally creates teamwork in the family, and we can give gratitude to like so many members of the family for any given meal.
Yes, yes, I love that building confidence piece because they really contributed, right, to the meal,
Yes.
to the family, and it feels so good. Like, I love that when I have created a meal or done something and, like, it was helpful. Yeah, what a beautiful gift and skill.
Before we wrap up, I'd like to ask a quick favor. This is an independent podcast, so I would love your help. Please share this podcast with your friends. Post about it on social media. Tell your girlfriends over lunch. Share about it with the mom at the park or at your next PTA meeting or homeschool co op meetup. And please take a moment to subscribe and to leave a 5-star review wherever you're listening. It will help more moms find and benefit from this work, and it will make my heart so happy.
So, I love all of this, and I would love to know, so if you could go back in time to when you first became a mom, with everything that you've been through, all of this beautiful journey that you've been on, all of these families that you've helped, what would you tell her? What would you want her to know?
I would want her to know not to parent from fear as
Mm,
often. Like, I think I'm there now where I'm like, yes, give knives to the children and let them climb trees. But I was just this week remembering back to when my oldest was just 1, like his first birthday is in the spring. So you're kind of inside a lot in the winter here in Michigan. And so he's getting outside, and his grandma was watching him, and she let him run on our driveway, which had a bit of a slope. He wiped out, scratched his nose, and I was like livid. This is so embarrassing because I should not have been. I was livid that she, quote, let him get hurt. And now I would be like, yay, like he's learning how fast his little legs can go on a slope. But that's like the new mom fear,
mm.
I think versus the
Oh, yeah.
seasoned mom going, it's okay, it's not life threatening, scrapes are good. So I think I would just let my kids do a little bit more, a
Yeah.
little bit earlier, even than I did.
Oh, I love that, and definitely one that I needed to hear because I'm still on that journey of releasing some of that mom fear. Like,
It's
um,
hard.
yeah, it really is, yeah. But, yeah, I think that's true, like, as, family grows, like, you see like, for the younger kids, I'm like, "Okay, I see that, your older siblings survived this."
Right.
It helps you let go a little bit too.
Yeah, we
Um,
learned from experience. And I
yeah.
think I would have had probably, if I'm allowed to say too, I think I would have had a little bit more structure to the family contributions than
Mm,
I did. Because again, now we have more structured chores and expectations. But I think if I'd started that earlier, the kids would have been more amenable to it and a little bit more motivated, like your kids are, as opposed to like, oh, chores, we hate, chores.
and so tell me, what would that look like, more structure? What would you have done differently?
Yeah, well, right now we have this list of weekly things that have to get done.
Mm,
So, cleaning different parts of the bathroom and vacuuming the stairs, and everything is sort of broken down into these little chunks. And every kid has to sign up for 6
mm,
per week. They can do them whenever they want, but by the time it hits Sunday after church, if they're not done, they don't get to play or
mm.
recreate if they're, an older kid. And so that, it's just this process where they're not really motivated anymore. And I wonder if I had started that whole process when they were all younger and they were more used to contributing at age 4 and 5, or something instead of that coming up at 10. And I also wish I would have experimented more with compensation, with figuring out like how to pay, a nickel or a quarter, like when that mattered, because we're just trying to do that now.
Yeah.
But, my 16-year-old has a job at a daycare. She's like, I'm not motivated by a 50 cent or a dollar chore. You know what I mean? So that would have been really cool to motivate them when they were 3 and 4 and 5, and nickels and quarters counted in their lives.
Oh, yeah, it's exciting to get those
Yes,
coins. Yeah.
exactly. Exactly.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing that because I think there's going to be moms that listen to this and are like, oh, okay, like that's gives me a place to start. And yeah, thank you. Thank you for all of this, for your honesty, for sharing your stories and your experience and everything. It's been so lovely to chat with you.
Oh, I'm
Okay,
so
so
glad.
tell us what's going on in your world. How can we connect with you? Where can we get more support?
Well, we always love to give free things away. So if your listeners wanted to go to Kids Cook, that's where they can get some life skills workshops. And once a year, we have this huge life skills summer camp with 100 skills at once, which is free. But any off times, that link will have 4 workshop videos, and they're for kids of all ages, kids and teens, teaching all sorts of life skills from like cooking to auto maintenance to starting a business. Just really cool stuff to expand kids' worlds.
Oh, I love that. I can't wait to check it out. Thank you for
Yay.
sharing that. Thank you for being here. Thank you for this beautiful conversation and the work that you do.
Oh, well, thank you too, Catherine. It's been fun.
Hi, love. This is just a reminder that Soul Care Mom offers information that's shared with love and intended for educational and inspirational purposes only. You should not rely on this information as a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you have any concerns or questions about your health, you should always consult with a trusted healthcare provider. Thank you for being here, and know that I am sending you so much love. Thanks for joining me, Mama. I'm over here smiling from ear to ear and giving you a big virtual hug. I love spending this time with you. You are amazing for showing up and carving out this space to nourish your soul. If you are loving the Soul Care Mom podcast, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. And if you are ready to start your mornings feeling calm and energized, get the Kickstart Your Calm Morning Guide, a self-care morning ritual for moms, as a free gift when you join the Soul Care Mom community. Head over to soulcaremom.com/kickstart and enter your email address to get your free gift and start feeling like a calm mom today. Sending you so much love.